we're continuing our exercise in exploring current events and looking at those events from a purely tension management perspective. So again, very important as we work our way through these calls that we don't, use this as a time to share too much about what our personal beliefs are, because we're not, well, maybe we do want to have a conflict occur. We can talk about tension management in a conflict. I don't know. But the real goal is to focus on what's going on with the levels of tension that the various players in whatever this drama are experiencing, what's going on with each one of them. And then, of course, how do we go about helping them move to a healthier spot? Where would that healthier spot be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Last time around, we were talking about Donald Trump being indicted. And we were talking a little bit about, well, who are some of the players? Where would they be on the change grid? What was the response like, et cetera? And we talked a little bit about that, but here it is now a week later, and it'd be interesting to kind of look at least to get us warmed up. What do you think has changed in the levels of tension of the people who are actively, I'll say, upgrid and outgrid a week ago? So what do you think's happened to the level of tension, and why do you think the level of tension has changed? Anybody?
I think what's interesting is I don't watch the news, and certainly not from here. Nicaragua is not a big story for here. But when I read the Wall Street Journal, different papers, the stories of it have calmed down. Like it's not front page news now
Yeah.
as it was before. So I'm wondering, does that play into, because it's like when it's breaking news, it's like, wow, headlines, it gets everyone's attention. But at some point in time, it kind of dies down and it's
Right.
like a forgotten story.
Right. Well, and I think I mentioned last time around, one of the newscasters said that one word was going to describe what the future was going to feel like for a very long time when it comes to this indictment issue. And the one word was boring. Because it says it's going to be a long time before anything actually starts happening. And once it does start happening, it may very likely be something that is closed door or whatever. We don't know. And so it's like, okay, fine, we'll come back to it. But what this really illustrates, I think, is the power of the media when it comes to tension management. So I would like to think that the media is looking for stories that already have inherent tension in them and then putting a spotlight on those stories. But I also know that sometimes when more upgrade situations aren't readily available, news agencies will create their own stories. They'll
Mm.
they'll change the lighting, they'll change the frame around something just so they can really do it. Doug Shags is so funny. Some people are so bullheaded that the Donald could die and they'd still vote for him. Well, and it's Scientology. Isn't the founder coming back, L. Ron Hubbard? Oh, by the way, I just have to take one quick moment. This is probably primarily for Shags. So Shags, if you're in a place where you can unmute. Did you see that Al Jaffe died? So
Yeah, that's pretty sad.
isn't that sad? But 102
They're
years.
going to fold them up and bury them in an envelope, though.
Yeah, that would be. That's what I was thinking. Those who aren't familiar, he was one of the top cartoonists for Mad Magazine, and he
He did the
recently
fold out.
died.
He
Yeah.
did the back fold out cover
All
for
right. Yeah, the
Generation.
fold in, right? The fold in, and um, yeah, no, just he was like one of the top illustrators of it, but he just passed away at 102 years old. So there you go. Okay, anywho, but back to this whole idea about the media being able to control things. The media is on a quest, as we talked about last time around, for making money. So where is the media on the change grid when it comes to just daily operations?
Outgrid.
they're outgrid. How far outgrid? Now we can start talking a little bit about where they're positioned by. What was the name of that website we went to that rated all the different news sources based on
All sides.
all sides? Yeah, yeah, yeah. To kind of go, here's how each one of them might lean or whatever. So I would imagine the further I lean to um, the issues that I am most in favor of. I'll say that the more outgrid I'm going to go, perhaps the more upgrid I'm going to go, depending on what I feel like I'm able to do about it. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
like the story that cop was on the in the papers that I've been reading from here as of late, where I don't know all the intricacies of it, but like the Tennessee
yeah, there was a shooting.
legislators,
Yeah, yep. So
those
if
two
I,
that were dismissed, and the white lady was not dismissed, and the two young black males were dismissed from the Tennessee
yeah,
legislature.
and then, well, one of them was reappointed, Justin Jones, I think, was reappointed.
That was on the news, like the front of the newspaper. So I was like,
Right.
what's going on with this?
Yeah,
But
and
now,
so I tend to go to Reuters or Associated Press if I just want a
right.
starting point for stuff that's neutral. And it's interesting to me that this is what they've chosen to spotlight today. The Louisville shooter legally bought a gun a week ago. I did think it'd be interesting for us to take a look at the whole issue of guns in the
Mm,
US on the change grid to see how tension management is really playing out in that large and ongoing drama. And I haven't looked at all these little smaller things they've got putting on here, but um, where's the mention more news of a volcano eruption? I don't see anything about those legislators being
yes,
trapped, not on the spotlight. Oh, the masters. Politics. Dems tap Chicago. Mark Lamb. Huh, good luck. The state of Arizona. DeSantis flexes key lawmakers when access to mishandled. They're not even mentioning what's going on in there. So that fast,
hmm
something can fall out of focus.
wow.
Yeah. hmm Yeah, we can just keep going, but you get the idea. It should have been much higher up on the list if it was something they were trying to prominently feature. Okay, so again, now the reason why I really do want to bring this up is because I believe that our media overall is far more powerful in managing the level of tension of the population than any other element in the dynamic, any other player in the field that of whatever the drama is we're looking at.
hmm
You guys know what I'm saying there? So everybody unmute, say something. So, this is, yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think social media, does its job. I mean, I pretty much stay away from most social media, but I think that I think between the top-down media, which is what I call the stations, and social media, which is more bottom-up,
Yeah,
and filtered.
yep,
Yeah, I mean that definitely
right.
definitely shifts.
It
It
has
definitely.
it has the widest, deepest opportunity for contact. It's relentless whenever it chooses to be. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so sometimes I wonder how responsible the media should actually be for the news that it reports. Now, that's the topic I wanted to throw out there. So, like, let's set aside the whole Trump affair and everything else that's going on. Set that aside for just a second. Instead, just go, let's really look at the media and how different players in the world of media feel about accountability for media. Kathy, you're still muted. Anything you want to throw in there?
It's interesting because I look back. I remember years and years ago, maybe 20 years ago, we have something called the Connecticut Forum here in Hartford, that it showcases. And years ago, when they first started, and I think it might have been as much as 20 years ago, there was a whole panel on the role of the media, um, operating with integrity. and the whole shift in the media away from really sourcing and really working news from a fact-based approach to, this was when the stations, Fox was just coming up, and some of these news shows were coming on board with it, with the shouters and the this and the that was just happening then, and how news had become more opinion based and less fact based and more opinion based.
Yes.
And how journalists have been increasingly upset about the lack of facts in journalism and what's happened. And I think that trend has been, that is, what do they say, that the horse is way out of the barn on this one
Yeah,
forever.
yeah, this has been evolving for a long time. Yep.
It's been evolving for a long time, and it's been out there, and I think that accountability lies with good journalism, and I think that, in my opinion, that's where accountability lies. So, are people pursuing good journalism? Are they pursuing topics? Who knows what people are interested in, because that's being driven a lot by the stories as they come up. But I think keeping things fact-based is about the best we can do right now, and I think that's not happening, except I do believe that the top newspapers do a good job of that. I really do. I do believe that good journalism is still occurring, and it's occurring in newspapers. The problem is that newspapers are almost going away.
Yeah.
And so, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, some of the, and some of the smaller newspapers that are being just driven out of business, that actually follow stories. So that's where I come from around this. Where is the opinion and where is the fact? And that's what all sides, what you introduced us to, tries to do, is say what are the facts, just the facts versus the opinion. So that's where I come out on this. There's a lot more to talk about with this, though.
There is. Well, that's excellent. And again, we're talking about this role of media. And so we should be able right now, just from what Kathy has shared with us, to determine where is Kathy on the change grid when it comes to media, holding media accountable, whatever. So anyone want to venture a position?
It
So
sounds
Tim,
like it's in the central.
It feels more like in the center, Tim, or was that Chris? Tim?
I think that was Tim.
Uh-huh.
yeah, so for me, I think it's a matter of control, right?
Mhm.
For those of us in the earlier generations, and I'm certainly in the baby boomer generation, but we grew up with traditional media.
We did, yeah. Walter Cronkite.
Yeah. And so traditional media was able to control the dissemination of information and influence perspectives and things of that sort. And so, as Kathy said, when we get into talking about social media, then we're looking more, I think, from the lens of ground up was the term she used, and I agree with that. And so, I think it's a lot more flexible when you talk about social media, and less about controlling the nature of the content and what goes out and how folks should think and what beliefs they should have about things. And so traditional media was able to control that, I think, a lot more than we find with social media. But I know folks in these younger generations, that lean more towards getting their information and data from social media versus traditional media.
It's interesting. And I'd like to add to that these traditional media outlets that, we've known for 40, 50 years each, way back when, do you guys remember before we had cable TV, back when there were only 3 channels available to most of the country? And then, oh, look, we could have a PBS program, we could do that. But, we probably, most of us were raised on 3, maybe 4 channels. In Detroit, we could also pull in a little bit from Canada. So we might have had 5 channels that you could actually watch. Well, when you've got major networks who are under the watchful eye of the Federal Communications Commission, and who knows who else is governing them. And they've got their own agencies that celebrate the quality of the reporting and the quality of the journalism and research and all that. It was easier for the media to control, if you will, the dissemination of the information, because it was easier for not just the government, but the profession to control the outlets. So there was an expectation that you would have anything you report be fully vetted. There was an expectation that you would listen to the news and you would not hear any opinion. And if you did hear an opinion, it was one single segment out of the whole show where someone might give forth a little opinion, and, whatever happens to be. Well, now we have countless, literally countless media outlets, and all but perhaps those three remaining big networks are not under the watchful eye of the Communication Commission, are not being observed by professional associations that have standards for conduct, schools of journalism, schools of reporting. No one's accountable for who these reporters are, how they're sourcing their material, and how the source acquired that material to begin with. And so,
Interesting.
I'm just throwing out an idea there. I'm just saying, on this topic of media, managing the media and how the media manages us, we have to think about all the different camps of thought that are already out there, and how each of them are considering proceeding. Like, for example, I have to believe that there is still a very active association of journalists that are still trying to get I mean, does the Pulitzer Prize mean anything anymore? I mean, I don't know. So I'll shut up for a second, let someone else unmute.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question actually, about, when Kathy was talking and the word responsibility kept coming up. I was going to ask, like, who holds these agencies accountable? It's not FTC or something like that, or securities commissions, when you're doing something in finance. So it seems like without that accountability, it's easy for this to go awry.
Yeah. Well, Brian, one of the best ways you can determine it in the US is, did you hear anybody swear? If you heard anybody swear, they are not on the three major networks that are under the watchful eye of the government. So that violates obscenity rules or whatever. I forget how they would sanction a channel if somebody dropped an F-bomb or whatever it is. But that's why a lot of times people that were being interviewed would always be on the delayed feed. So there was an opportunity for someone to get bleeped before I went on there. But you guys watch TV. Most things you watch these days that you're getting off of a streaming service, they seem to say whatever they feel like saying. They're not under the watchful eye of the government to the degree.
Yeah, I was going to go back to that. I just want to comment on that notion about the Pulitzer. I mean, I think there is accountability. There are still standards of journalism, and I certainly take the Pulitzer Prize just seriously and follow it and see what organizations and who are being awarded those given those awards, based on what. And so, I think the standards are still out there. The question is how many people do care.
Right.
But I think there is a core of people who do care about those things. But I mean, take it or leave it. I mean, that's one of the things that matter to me and the people that I know. So.
Right. All right. So let me throw a few questions to you guys so we can start looking at the actual tension placement on there. So I'm going to say, let's let the first question be, why would a particular area of the change grid be interested in media? And what kind of qualities are they looking for in that media? And that's a question I just wung together. So whatever. So if I think, like, if I've got a driven driver, what's a driven driver want out of the media? What are the expectations the driven driver might have? Or even if you got a couple of driven drivers with different viewpoints, they'd be willing to fight about it. What's the fight all about if people are driven drivers about the media?
I would say ammunition for their cause, for
Ammunition.
their fight. Whatever it is they're driving toward. What is the media giving them to be able to do that? That's how I would see it.
Right. And so they, driven drivers might be seeing the media as a tool for gaining greater exposure for themselves or whatever their agenda happens to be. Very forceful, because again, they're in the outgrid danger zone for the most part. They could be very forceful, pushy, demanding. If you're a 1010, maybe you're just a highly skilled negotiator that are trying to, get the media to put a spotlight on whatever your cause is. And we'll just say, and the cause is a noble one, because that's still a possibility. Remember that not everybody that's a driven driver is evil. A driven driver could also be the best leader for the best intentions and the, best things to ever come across our range of opportunities. And so let's not throw them away. But I would say the more outraged you are, the more you want the media to become your personal exclusive outlet. Now, if we take that to an extreme, I can tell you that there are certain governments that tightly control all media, right? And so you look about, I don't care, North Korea, Russia, whatever, China, whatever, it might just be trying to maintain strict control over certain aspects of it. But you understand that there are certain players out there who desperately want to literally control the media for whatever their agendas happen to be. So can you guys think about some things that might fall into that category? Yep, of course. I mean, that
That,
they're out there. Okay.
that
Now,
tries to control people, you're saying?
it tries to, they want the media to do what they want the media to do. To Kathy's point, these people have an agenda, they have a cause. And whatever
Oh,
it
okay.
is that helps them get their cause, that's what they want the media. If they see the media has a way to help them get more of that, then they want the media. But do they want the media? Are they happy if the media just agrees to preach their gospel? Or do they want to ensure that the media preaches their gospel and only their gospel?
They want to ensure it. So that's where you see the fascist groups out there.
Right. It depends on where you are out here. So if I'm an 1111, I might realize that I don't have the military power or, even the political power to make the media go to my cause. But I can certainly put up a good fight, and I can certainly, cast all kinds of negative shadows on those that don't do what I want to do. But I can't come in there and say, you'll do it or I'll kill you. So that's where we
Right.
get out here to these crazy, crazy, fascist kind of countries, etc. So point is,
So
yep, go ahead.
so if you're driven, and it's not necessarily bad, but if you're out there, I guess the question that I have is like, are you want the media to say what you want it to say based on your agenda, but
Yep.
that's not necessarily based on facts.
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Oh,
Who are this far
gotcha.
out grid will, believe that the rules don't apply to them. Again, this is the domain of the narcissist. This is the domain of
Ah,
the superhero. So again, if you're in a situation where you've got a perceived challenge of 11 or 12 and you perceive your ability as being an 11 or 12, you're going to be outgrid about that. Now, if you're outgrid once or once in a blue moon about some specific thing that arose in your life, well, more power to you. I'm glad you can step up to the plate and fight the good fight when you've got, that kind of threat. But to live there all day, every day, to have
mm,
that be the essential element of your personality, we got trouble. And particularly if that trouble isn't caused by someone's thought processes, but because of underlying neurochemical, situations that, just aren't as easy to overcome. If
right. So
Well,
would that also describe those, I'm sorry, Tim. So would that also describe those people, like I think I've read statistically 1 out of 4 I don't remember which demographic, but I know it was one of the younger demographic. We weren't sure if millennial or Gen Z or whatever was
Yeah,
on
there are.
behind that.
Yep.
But it said that 1 out of 4 of them get their news from uh, Facebook or
Yep.
Meta, whatever they're called.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So they're just looking for like quick bits of information to just kind of confirm. So they're not trying to investigate anything, right? So
Right.
what do you call that?
Well, that again goes back to what Kathy was saying about people getting their news from social media, from the bottom up, from the grassroots, where the you just want the information because you feel upgrade about something, or you see a piece of information that moves you upgrade, so now you get engaged in the content or whatever. And so, but no one's ever asked or answered the question: is that content correct? Is it factual? Is it really a real thing? Is it some practical joke or scam? I mean, how often have you guys heard of people stumbling across an article in The Onion and then thinking it's real? Where the Onion, the front page, the banner head of The Onion says it's a satirical publication. So,
Right.
but, you know, I forget who said that the two most abundant elements in the universe are actually stupidium and moronium. So, yeah, you get the population is not as savvy as we would like to think it would be. Half of the population has an IQ that is below the other half of the population, if you will. Does that make sense? Yeah, there's a median point. Half's going to be above, half's going to be below. So, Brian, it's just the way that it really, really is.
Mm.
But someone wants to make money no matter what. And so why is it that publications like Facebook allow whatever to be written they want to be written? They're trying to sell advertising. They know where they make their money. So
Mm.
there's no mistake about it. Anything they say about trying to maintain quality and blah, blah, blah. All right. But
The,
So I
the other,
dropped a link in the chat to a blog, and the author actually, I think she's answering in part Brian's question about what do you call it, and she's outlined 16 differences between social media and traditional media. And
Oh,
traditional media, she says, is about controlled communication versus social media. She labels it community decision making.
wow.
mm,
Wow. Mm.
interesting. Traditional media and social networking.
Or
Mm.
social media is only as good as the people who participate.
Well, that's certainly true. And I think that's also very true that even in the world of social media, there are certain participants in it or personalities in it that you go, that they're good. They're doing their homework. They know their stuff, they're vetting everything. But this is interesting. So here are the 16. Yeah, free platform, paid platform. Those have both got crossed out because there's one way or another it's getting paid owned earned. Yeah, this would be a very interesting thing to kind of look at just to see traditional media. I saw down here that formal language versus informal, passive involvement versus active
Active.
involvement.
Mm.
Right, that if you were a news reporter, you were reporting the news. You weren't really there. You weren't involved. I mean, if you were covering a war and you were one of those correspondents, it was calling in from the battlefield. Well, obviously you're trying to not be involved because you'd like to come home, but you are at least physically there, and that added a certain realness.
But one can also argue that in terms of social media, the engagement is quite passive because you're just there collecting, acquiring, but you're not
Well,
really doing anything with it
I don't know
necessarily.
about that. Yeah, I don't know about that. You keep in mind that every time I watch a video on social media, I am providing um, income to them. So it isn't as passive as it seems.
yeah, and I was going to say, I mean, we know this, and Brian, you know this. We talked about this in neuroscience, the neuroscience conversations. We are so directed by our social media, no matter who we are. Every time we click on something, we're going to get 10 things that are like that click.
Yep.
and we're placed more and more in silos of perspective based on our clicks and our engagement, so that we lose the opportunity to then see the other side in social media, because we're just not shown it.
Right, right. So it reinforces who we are and how we are. And yeah, on and on. So yeah, we should take a deeper look at this. So let me kind of mark it over here. But Tim has the link in the chat window for all of you guys if you want to go there and mark it. Now, again, our subject here is really about what's going on with the levels of tension that people are experiencing. And so we started off with this driven driver quadrant. The good one would be the amiable driven driver. I'm worried when there is a slightly driven driver versus an extremely driven driver. So, you know, there is a continuum there that we still have to look at, but, you know, we know why they want to use the media. Now, let's talk about the just average, you know, American or whoever who's just trying to get the news of the day so they feel like they're informed, but no one's trying to, you know, where are we? Do we want to be entertained? Do we want to be informed? Where do you think we want to be?
The analytical driver.
The analytical driver. That's what yeah, Linda just chimed in. I didn't even know she was sitting behind me. But yeah, this is the analytical driver wants to be informed, and because their driver, they actually seek out to that information so they can stay informed about what's going on. Keep in mind that to a certain degree, TV has always been more passive than social media in terms of accessing it, because you can turn the TV on, they can run in the background. And I know you can do that with certain web channels as well. But usually when you're on the web getting your news, you are being exposed to umpteen different links and deeper content and all that. So you go on you know, you go down a rabbit hole, you go off on a click frenzy. So it doesn't really control you as well as um, the people who are looking for information want it to necessarily be. So they just want it, want it, want it. Who else might? What about the people who want their news to be entertaining? Yeah. All right.
What is the question, T? What is the question?
So
Where
there's
are
certain, yeah, there's a certain consumer of media that just wants to be entertained. So if they learn some stuff along the way, that's all fine and dandy. But really, they're just trying to feel something. They're trying to be more entertained, more whatever. Where are they on the grid?
I think they're in the expressive
Okay.
side. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
more upgrade. Yeah.
I would agree.
I'm going to put them anywhere along here, anywhere along here, because what happens, the person who is more interested in having the response that they have grown accustomed to / addicted to, rather than what the content is that is bringing them that reward. Do you know what I mean? People who get upset about things when they're watching a news story that has got nothing to do with them whatsoever. They seek out those kinds of things because they want to feel something. And if they're not upset enough about something, then it's almost like they're not getting their level of stimulation that they really need to feel functional. So if they can find it, they'll grab hold of it. They're looking for that, whether it's positive stimulation or the further upgrade you go, the more it might become stimulation on your fears, stimulations on your anger, on your lust, whatever it is. So there's a full range of emotions we look at. We know this as we move further and further upgrade. Well, depending on what kind of entertainment I'm looking for, what kind of engagement I'm looking for, I can be in very different areas on our way upgrade. But do you guys understand there's a certain group of people who turn to media, social media and traditional media because they want to be moved upgrade? All right.
Yeah.
I read an article where a psychologist, I think, probably was speaking to that, and she was saying that if that's excessive, then that's an individual who is really running from reality.
That's right,
Mm,
because you're going to end up too far upgrade sooner or later, where
mhm,
you feel like you've got no ability to handle this challenge that, in all likelihood, exists only in your mind.
mm,
So that because you've been first you were swayed, then you got contaminated, then so sooner or later you end up with a might end up with a whole pile of nonsense. But nevertheless, it can still keep you awake at night, stretch it out to the nth degree. I'll give you an example about why people turn to social media or media in general in order to move up grid. I'm one of these people that really, really, really needs to wake up quietly, gently, slowly. You just ease yourself into the awareness that consciousness is returning and on and on. These people who wake up to their radio alarm clock blaring top 40s or whatever, where you have all these newscasters, radio people have to be upgraded. Radio advertising is extremely upgraded as far as the pace of the information and the intensity of it. I can't handle traditional radio. Um, Even if I'm listening to something that might be mellow enough, maybe it's classical, maybe it's some new age sort of stuff, whatever it is, I might be listening to something mellow. They still have to make their money, and interspersed between their mellowness is all this upgrade pattern interrupt. So some people need to have that awakening in the morning, just like they need their coffee. They need something to stimulate their level of productive tension. So
mm,
I'm waving around here like it's all upgrade. They might be down in apathy, giving the sleep example. They needed to get out of apathy up to power apathy, to at least get out of the bed, So, the radio moves you all the way from unconsciousness to stress, and it can do it rather quickly. Obviously, if you need to turn on your media to watch something, well, you're already upgrade a bit more by there. You're at least actively looking. You opened your computer, you picked up your phone, you're doing something that involves a conscious decision to go on a quest. Well, now you can see what it stumbles across, or what you stumble across is going to take the job now and move you further and further upgrade based on headlines and sensational copy and things like that. So do y'all feel manipulated? So,
yeah, that's a lot of conditioning. It sounds like.
right. But this is a lifetime of conditioning. This isn't
Yes.
just modern. I mean, way back I don't know when radio first became a common thing for, every household to have. But I imagine they knew if they could make their money on upgrade things, don't change that channel, stay pulled in, you know,
Hmm.
whatever it is. And so we needed personalities. We needed to have some sort of what you call the jockeys. They were radio. No, the shock jocks came later. What were they beforehand?
DJs, disc jocks.
Well, I think that's what they might have been. Those were the earliest disc jock because they were deciding what they were going to play next and
Hmm.
putting the actual physical record on. I mean, back in the days and all
Hmm.
that. So maybe they're the ones who evolved into the shock jocks Linda just mentioned, and all things from early '90s. Is that when the
Yeah.
beginning of shock
Yep.
jocks? Yeah. All right, now the question becomes, what is someone who is, all right, so we've just said, if you're outgrid, we know why you want the media. It's to support you in your task, particularly if you're the driven driver. If you're the expressive driver or badly up, you still want it to be engaging to you. So just stay in the driver quadrant. And if you are an expressive driver, you're saying, I want something that's going to keep me on task and energized, right? Because they're a driver, they're on task, but they want to be enthusiastic, upgrade, etc. So there might be certain things that they respond to very, very well. So before this takes to a negative of a light, how many of you, for at least a period of your life, listened to self-help tapes? Or self-help CDs when that happened? You were trying to use every available moment for growth and development, for motivation and inspiration. you know, whether it's church, whether it's whatever it is. This is all resonating very much with what the person who's a more of an expressive driver would want the media to be, the media to do for them. So are there any inspirational shows that are still out there? I know there's still some faith-based shows that are out there, but is there any like good news channels? Yeah, because that's what's going to respond to here. A lot of this moved online, so rather than people listening to some motivational message, they can instead go to a library of motivational messages. There are podcasts that are going to satisfy the people that are the expressive drivers, etc. What about
I
the
get a great newsletter every day that's from nicenews.com.
Yeah, there you go. And so that's something that's going to give you the feels
Oh.
and going to be energized, motivated. That's going to resonate very much with the expressive driver. So the expressive driver is going to seek that stuff out and it's going to respond to it. Oh, yay. Thanks for the link. Nicenews.com. What does an analytical driver want in their news?
Facts.
We want the facts. And so what are the possibilities there? Facts about what? I might want science facts. Linda just chimed in. I might want the financial news. And I don't need your commentary or predictions about the financial news. Just tell me what the financial news is. You know, and then maybe it's also facts about current events. You know, this is stuff we're really looking for, but a place we know we can turn to for reliable news. I remember when I was growing up in Detroit, on a snowy morning, we'd always have the TV or the radio on to a specific channel because it did the best job of reporting school closings. And so have you guys all been there? If you've lived in a snowy environment where you go like, please, 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 please let them cancel school. So, but that's what you would do. And you go like, who's going to get it first? Because we want to know it first. So what's their scoop, you know? So, yeah. Oh, Linda's also saying that people that are analytical drivers very much like TED Talks.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
see a good piece of education, and it's something that can be that you know is reliable. I mean, I know that organization has changed over the years, but I think it's still one that is respected for the vetting of speakers. Even if you're on, was it TEDx, where pretty much anybody could have an opportunity instead of just the national fit. You guys remember the TED Talks were originally a national physical thing that you would attend. Edie, that's something you want to throw in?
Oh, you know, I was just didn't know if I was mute, but I am doing another one next week. So
Are you?
yeah.
So someday you should tell us how you arrange those. That's a TEDx, or is that a full-blown
That's TEDx, but apparently if you get enough views, it goes to TED, and I'm hell bent. The topic is, and Brian has been my resource. I call him all the time, but is AI and technology making us dumb? And I'm learning so much, it scares the hell out of me today.
yeah. It's definitely going to dumb down a certain population that was already leaning towards dumb. But
you know what? We've gone down, we've gone from 1975 to 2000. We have lost 13.7 points on IQ. We're only at 97. If we go another, we're borderline intelligence as a society. Stupidity can't support a democracy, so it's an issue.
No, it's absolutely true. It's a real deal. Now, couple that with the fact that the birth rate is going down rather dramatically worldwide. And I forget, I was probably a TED Talk that just said that you have to understand that your economy is based on population.
Right.
So if you don't have the population, then how are you going to get the quantity of things that need to be moved? So you got to keep the population up if you want to be able to continue to fund a lot of the things that we like to have funded, let alone expand into more. So you need the population. So it's a very interesting world, but that's the kind of stuff that an analytical driver just gobbles up. So
yeah, the biographies, like the
interesting
special documentary kinds of biographies, that a special news report on this, person that's making an impact. I love that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to say instead of talking about the medias we have up to now, we have to recognize the books are also a form of media.
Mm.
They tend to be lagging indicators because it takes time to write a book, although sometimes, uh, like, were you guys, did you notice how fast after the Queen's passing, the first book about the Queen's life came out? Or how fast 60 Minutes can throw together a whole hour about the Queen? Why do I think they have a whole team of people that are anticipating the deaths of significant people? So
It
they can,
was probably put together already. All they had to do
oh, you
was
got to
put in the
believe the
last paragraph.
yeah, the graphic department's done their part long, long, long ago.
Mm.
But yeah, they used AI. Exactly. Well, they probably did. They probably did. Anywho, I wanted to talk about books for a second because, oops, sorry, I just moved somewhere that might have put my screen to sleep, but I'll be back. There I am. So, I wonder if the books resonate very well with more amiable drivers. Linda is a member of a couple of book clubs, and while they read a variety of books, they tend to really like things that are more of a biographical nature, telling the life story of a famous person from one way to another. So some of them were like famous political people. Like Linda, throw out a name. Who you've read recently? Oh, FDR. Who else? Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yeah, Ruth Bader
Oh
Ginsburg.
yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, so I kind of think that that responds well because I think the amiable driver, um, particularly an analytical amiable driver, wants to know that there's accuracy in
Hmm.
whatever this human sort of story really is. Analytical drivers aren't really so concerned about the human story, but they might say to you, if you're telling me something that is factually sound and interesting and decide to package it in the form of a story, I'm okay with that too. So accurate historical fiction might be
Hmm.
something that would be in between here. So the point is the people that are more on the in-grid side of the out-grid quadrant are looking for the media to satisfy their own preferences in terms of energy, content, etc. Now,
Interesting.
so if I want to be a good, successful media outlet, can I hit all three of these and do a good job? Can I hit well, actually all four, because I really should still address the amiable driven driver as being part of that mix. CBS Sunday morning. Yeah, Linda says CBS Sunday morning because they always do a variety of stories. Interesting, yeah, because sometimes they're very much for the analytical driver. Sometimes they're very upgrid. Sometimes they're very humanistic, and sometimes they really are designed to like capture your attention. So
I
yeah,
love the second half of PBS at night, PBS NewsHour.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Do they do segments?
that's yeah, they do great segments about the arts and about different people and biography, and it's much more broad oriented rather than the hard hitting news. And so that's when I tend to plug in.
Right. And so, from a attention management perspective, we would say that a media outlet along those lines is going to be far more flexible in what they're able to do, so therefore far more valuable in how it fits into human growth. Also, keep in mind that why we're looking at this outgrid quadrant is because this is where change really occurs. So remember, change only occurs two places. Upgrid changes are driven by external factors. We're responding or reacting to them, where outgrid changes are very calculated, deliberate, intentional sorts of things that we are doing on a pursuit for growth. As we move our way from awareness, we formulate intentions, we become engaged, and ultimately we execute on whatever it is that needs to be done. So this is where our progress is really living. Now, what if you are a news outlet that's decided to focus on only one of the four quadrants? What happens then to you? How does that change your behavior? How does that focus your target market? So let's say, for example, that I am a media outlet that does absolutely nothing but financial news reporting, world financial news. I suspect there's a bunch of channels out there that focused entirely on world financials. Yeah.
Bloomberg.
Yes.
Yeah, I would never watch one. Even talking about it is boring me. But Linda would like it, but yeah, not my thing, not my thing. And so the problem is that if you are there and you're really doing the solid job, the best job you can do of keeping things timely and factual, very real, reliable, well vetted, etc., you are going to resonate with a certain, what do we say, subsection of the analytical drivers. These are the people that are those analytical drivers who are also well aligned with your financial focus. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that still leaves you a whole lot of analytical drivers that you're not connecting with because you're not offering a diversity of factual information. And the likelihood that I'm going to hear any kind of a human interest story or any kind of an inspirational, motivational, developmental sort of story, that's not what's going to happen there. Maybe I'll get a little driven driver if that news outlet that's focusing on financials also has an element about giving people predictions or directions on what they should be doing as far as positioning whatever their funds are based on whatever opportunities exist out there. Maybe I get a little bit of the more driven driver energy that's out there, but amiable driven driver. Hopefully nothing this far out grid, nothing in the danger zone.
Mhm.
Thoughts about that? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I see that on Bloomberg a lot. They might have Kramer or one of those guru experts, and he gives his take on different class categories of stock and
Mhm.
what's happening in them.
Yep.
And he's quite popular,
Right.
so
And
I
so
see this a lot.
because they're going after such a much smaller target audience, those individuals that they're targeting have certain expectations, certain requirements. And so we've already talked about it, so I'll just say they better stay being very accurate, very timely, very clear, very whatever, because the moment they lose that credibility with their listeners, what happens to their organization?
Yeah, crash.
It's going to suffer, and it doesn't have a whole lot to fall back on. Now let's see, Kathy, you were also unmuted. Go ahead and unmute and share.
Yeah, I mean, my husband watches those frequently, not constantly, thank God, but frequently, and has his specific opinions about which are more accurate and which are not, and they so it's professionals who listen to that, and self-investors, people who are whose world revolves around that information are your primary
Hmm.
Exactly.
clientele there, and it's going to bore most people. But there are also, like, Kramer's an example of somebody who's been wrong a lot, who does a lot of he does a lot of almost social media type
Hmm.
predictions, and that works. So there is a spectrum among that group, but
There is.
you know,
Because even
but definitely,
Everett, if he's, I think as you're characterizing him, he's more of a driven analytical driver, or maybe an analytical driver, right on the edge between, because this is what happens. If you start to get a personality and that personality starts to become famous, then that personality's job changes. Yeah, the
yeah,
job is still bring in money, but now they want to make sure they go from being a recognized personality to a household name to a whatever. So they need to become more provocative. This gets back into shock jock radio as well.
right. So that it has a spectrum, but yeah, that's
Can you,
there is a niche.
Kathy, what do you think about that? If I'm one of these people who really wants to see the facts, all the facts and all the detail, I want it to be accurate, I want it to be timely, I want it to be reliable, all that sort of stuff. What do you think happens to my connection to the media outlet if they start putting a bigger showcase on the personality side of things?
Yeah, they're gonna reduce it. They're gonna go more toward written information. They're gonna move away from media type,
Yeah,
spoken media, and move more toward written media and more toward expert opinion. Yeah,
If
expert.
you give me one person's opinion, I can go like, fine, I don't need to watch them if I don't agree with them. But if more and more and more such individuals start to rise in the organization, then the focus on the initial job, which is to report information accurately, timely, all that sort of stuff, seems to have fallen by the wayside.
Yeah.
And now my trust is going to encourage me to go look for another option.
Well, and I mean, if I can just throw in another 2 cents here, the same way with people who watch a specific bias in their media,
Oh, yeah.
a TV show or whatever, if that media starts getting too balanced, they're going to move away from it.
They're going to
They're
lose that audience. Yep.
Yeah.
Because that also means that, there's only a certain amount of people that they have available to them to become clients one way or another anyway. And you got these people that are these outlets that are very much on the heart line. They're just say in the center of driver. They're doing a really good job. They respect the analytical part. They know they got to get accomplish something. They've got to keep people interested and engaged, and they have to make sure that their listeners know that the listeners are important to them. That's smack dab. What's that, dear? Walter Cronkite. Yeah, Walter Cronkite. So that's what you're kind of really going for. Well, any news outlet that starts to put increasing focus on capturing viewership is going to start playing the game differently, because whatever viewership they've got because of the way they are, the way they present and carry themselves. And the longer they've been doing it, the more likely it is to be solid. If they're trying to actually secure someone else's demographic, as opposed to say, let's just focus more on getting more of the people in our demographic to listen to what we have to say. They have a really tough battle ahead of them, because I know I'm babbling, but we've got 4 different types of driver, 4 different people that are on a quest for media. And we have to recognize that we need to resonate with one, or 2, maybe 3. But yeah, it's a job for us to really do that. I know we're at the top of the hour. Just to kind of maybe we'll pick this up on our next little call. But I did want to say, the people who are totally upgrade, also like the media. But what do you think the media is really doing for these people that are already upgrade? Yeah, Linda said keeping them engaged in being upgrade. So,
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, like, because it seems like here it is twice now. Again, I don't watch the news, but I try to keep up with my sports, and I fell asleep with the TV on.
Yeah.
And as I'm listening to the news, these developing kinds of nations, seem like the news is driven towards this idea of you can be rescued. Like, because it has this world focus on different kinds of issues that are going on that seems to be, for lack of intention words, better than what you're going through.
Yep.
So there's a rescuer out there, and it's not here. Kind of a thing seems to be
Right.
going
And even if that rescuer isn't actually there, because there's some kind of an upgrade issue that's going on, and we are doing our best to show that we are helping this upgrade situation, we're moving this upgrade situation, I don't know that I actually have to do it to get the benefit. All I have to tell you is that I'm doing it because I'm media, right? So I can make it look like I've delivered, 100 semi trucks worth of water to a drought-stricken area. I can make that happen inside of my Photoshop skills. So, but you're absolutely right. It's an upgrade kind of a focus. Downgrade people also will turn to the media, but this is the domain of default stations. So when you turn on your radio in the car, what's the default station it's set on? For us, it's NPR, and we travel so little. The chance that we go off NPR, it must be Christmas and we're hunting for Christmas carols. So otherwise, we'll just leave it on. We'll be where we're going in 5 minutes. Why hunt for a channel? But I think people also have default TV stations that they just kind of leave it on if nothing else is on.
Yeah, ESPN.
Yeah, maybe it's ESPN. I remember in the early days of cable TV, CNN would have that constant ticker that was reviewing it. And there was one that you just headline news. Was that its own station or was that part of some other group?
I think that was part of another group.
I don't remember, but all I know is that every 30 minutes you'd hear the exact same news, and there were people
Yeah,
who would use that as their default station. It's kind of like you're just hearing the same news over and over.
right, right. Yeah, I think it was part of that Turner Network thing,
Yeah.
headline news. 'Cause
I
they used
think it was CNN at the airports.
Well,
Oh,
yeah. You know, people were buying the rights to be the default station, you know. But the people that are this far down grid, you want to engage them in a conversation about the media, as long as their sporting events are on, as long as, you know, they could go to sleep to you. You're a default kind of station. This is
For my husband, it's the Yankee station.
the Yankee station. That's great.
ah, that's awesome.
Yeah, TV wise, I don't know what we default to because everything we do is streaming, so we're always going deliberately looking. Oh yeah, Linda watching Murder She Wrote. There is not a episode of Murder She Wrote that Linda has not seen so many times. Because while she's doing breakfast, it's the default. I'm just counting my blessings that she's abandoned Leave It to Beaver. So that's what she.
Uh,
Yeah, there you go.
that's funny.
That's
For
her
a while, I
PowerPoint.
watched crime TV, and then Karen wondered if she should increase her life insurance.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. Linda just said it's a PowerPoint maneuver for her, so that's why she watches those kinds of things. All right, we're done for today. So thank you all very much for joining us. Just always look at the world around you and ask yourself, what's going on with my tension? What's going on with the world's tension? There's a lesson to be learned in every single way. So thanks, everybody. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.